Hey guys, welcome back. Woodworking here. Today, let's talk about drafting. I could make a 60-minute video about drafting and still probably not cover everything. As I mentioned in my How to Get Better at Vainglory video, drafting is a huge part of ranked matches, and if you are someone who rarely ranks, you are not going to have any clue what to do when you get into a ranked match with draft mode. The biggest three parts of drafting are knowing what the meta heroes are, counterpicking, and knowing your, and hopefully your teammates' strengths and weaknesses. Let's start with the basics. You have two sides that you can be on during the draft, A side and B side. Both teams get a ban. Then A side picks one hero, B side picks two heroes, A side picks two heroes, and then B side picks their final hero. If there are three heroes that are overpowered in the current meta, you may feel like A side has an advantage. You would assume that A side and B side will each ban one of the three overpowered heroes. But if you are B side, you do not have to ban one of those three heroes. Then you give yourself the chance at getting one of them. This video is going to need updating as the meta changes, so I will just focus on general draft strategies, counters to heroes, and drafting in the current meta. Generally speaking, you want a weapon power hero, a crystal power hero, and a captain on your team. Generally, the A side team drafts a captain first. The reason A side does this is so that B side doesn't get to counterpick against their carry or jungler with B side's first two picks. Generally, B side drafts their captain and carry first. It is a good idea to pick a carry that has both a good weapon power and crystal power path on the B side as one of your first two picks. Or in some cases, a hero that can go jungle or carry. Skye, for example. If B side saved their jungle pick for last, they can counterpick the side A jungle pick with B side's last pick. If you're saying, I don't know good counters, you're in luck. I'm going to give you every carry hero in the game and their hardest counters in the description of this video. There are a bunch of things you can do with draft. You can keep certain comps in your mind that you want to draft towards. For instance, working towards triple stun can be really good against comps that are mostly depending on one hero to do their damage, like Skarff. Picking a roam with a good peel like Ardan or Lance is really effective against dive comps. But if you aren't very familiar with drafting, you should be trying to get heroes that you and your team are good with, while also attempting to counter the enemy picks. With your bans, you should either be removing heroes that are considered overpowered, or heroes that always give you trouble. If Catherine always wrecks you because you can't block her silence, ban her. My priority ban on B-side draft right now is Gwen. If A-side banned Gwen, we usually ban Catherine or Petal. When you start playing with draft, it is pretty important to have a hero pool of at least 3 heroes for the position you want to play. If you are only good with, say, Ardan and Catherine gets banned and Ardan got picked by the enemy team, you're going to lose a lot of games. Ranked play isn't the best way to learn new heroes if you really haven't ever played them much. Over the last 2 patches, my team has over a 70% win rate when I play Lance, so we prioritize Lance when he is available. You should do the same. If one person on your team just absolutely wrecks with a certain hero, especially if it is a captain, you should prioritize that hero. One exception I will give to this is counterpicking. For instance, one person we play with is very good at Petal, but Petal is very easily countered. So we almost never pick Petal as first pick on A-side draft. If she is still available during later picks, we will usually grab her. Let's do some mock drafts. You are B-side first pick. A-side bans Catherine. Who do you ban? As I said earlier, ban heroes that are either overpowered, always do well against you, or counter the team composition you would like to draft. You think Gwen is overpowered, so you ban her. A-side picks Lance. You are the captain for your team, and like me, you like to frontline when you play captain, so you grab Ardan. You tell your teammate, hopefully on Discord, to grab Skye. You want Skye because she can go jungle or lane, weapon power, or crystal power, which makes her very difficult to counter by the enemy team's draft picks than, say, grabbing Celeste or Skarff. The enemy team grabs Ringo and Blackfeather. Both those heroes can go crystal power or weapon power, but you can pretty safely assume that Ringo is going to go to the lane. Smart picks by them because Ringo and Blackfeather are good against Skye, and Blackfeather can use his ult to get out of Ardan's gauntlet. So you check what the counters to Blackfeather are in my guide in the description or on Google and see Petal would be a great choice. So your team now consists of Skye weapon power carry, Petal in the jungle as crystal power, and Ardan as your captain. Going into this game, you should feel pretty good about your draft. Petal should be able to dominate the jungle against Blackfeather throughout the game, and late game, Ardan should have enough in his kit to keep Skye alive by peeling with Gauntlet or vanguarding her. If you were on the A side in this draft, Lance is definitely going to have to do his best to contain Petal's minions. You are on side A this time. You would like to try to get Gwen because you think she is overpowered and your carry is really good with her. You ban Catherine. B-side bans Petal. You pick Gwen. B-side drafts Lance and Adagio. What does your team do? You think Koshka is really strong, especially early game, which would be nice since Gwen's early game is very squishy. She also has a stun for Adagio's ult, so you grab Koshka. Ardan seems like the best roam choice left, since you don't have a frontliner, if you grab Lyra for instance, and 3 squishy heroes is very tough to play. The enemy team picks Blackfeather. How do you think that draft went? Assuming Lance is the captain, Adagio is going crystal power in lane, and Blackfeather is going weapon power in jungle, the B-side drafted with the sole purpose of countering your Gwen. They will attempt to jump on Gwen with Blackfeather and Lance, lock her down as Adagio puts burn down, and either buffs Blackfeather or himself. It's going to be a tough game for Gwen, and Ardan's going to have his work cut out for him trying to keep her alive. So when you draft, I said you want to think about picking strong meta heroes, countering the enemy team heroes, and preventing the enemy team from getting their ideal composition. Let's see some mock drafts where we prevent the enemy from getting the compositions they want. A-side bans Catherine. You ban Ardan on B-side. A-side first picks Gwen. You draft Lance and Adagio on B-side. You just grab the next 2 best roamers, which can both be flexed into carry roles, so A-side is forced to pick a subpar roamer. Let's assume they draft Lyra Koshka to round out A-side draft. They now have no frontliner. You last pick Blackfeather on B-side. You just won that draft. Blackfeather can dive onto Gwen with Adagio getting burned down on her too, while Lance provides CC against Koshka for Adagio. Let's talk more about counter drafting because I think that is what most people have trouble with. Look at this draft as A-side. Lance and Petal are off the table. The enemy has picked Ardan and Skye, and you already selected Catherine as your roam. What do you pick? You've got a lot of options. What counters Skye and gives you a weapon power and CP carry and jungler? Ideas? Maybe CP Ringo with weapon power Glaive, weapon power Gwen with crystal power Koshka, crystal power Adagio, and weapon power Blackfeather. Are any of those comps easily countered by the enemy team's last pick? Do any of those include the most meta heroes? Gwen is the strongest carry in the game right now, so we decide to grab her for sure. She can go both weapon power or crystal power, but her weapon power path is stronger, so we needed a crystal power jungler. Koshka is the top choice, but alpha or even crystal power Kestrel could also be good. So how do you decide? Whichever your jungler, even if it happens to be you, is best with, should be the pick you choose. A-side picked Lance. Gwen and Catherine are off the table. What do you draft? I mentioned earlier that Skye was a good B-side flex pick besides your captain, but what are other options? Kestrel is a good option because she can go either crystal power or weapon power and lane or jungle. So you grab Kestrel and Ardan. If you were A side, what do you want to grab into B side's draft? You see on the list that Kestrel is countered by Ringo and Glaive. So you grab Crystal Power Ringo and Weapon Power Glaive. Back to B side. What can you best pick to counter what A side just selected? Koshka would be a solid choice because of her ability to jump on Ringo and delete him, but you are worried about Glaive and his stun against Koshka. How about Crystal Power Blackfeather? His ult allows him to dodge Ringo's ult and Glaive's afterburn. He is sticky, so he will be able to stick onto Ringo until he is dead. This is what I was talking about, having a lot of heroes you are able to play. I mentioned in an earlier video that having more heroes in your arsenal is like having more tools in your toolbox. Although a hammer could probably drive a screw through a piece of wood, wouldn't it be way better to use an impact driver? If you only know how to play 2 or 3 heroes, you will be trying to counterpick with heroes that aren't really counters to the enemy's composition. The more heroes you have at your disposal, the better your drafting can become. The only other thing I want to mention about drafting in this video is the importance of soft locking if you are solo queuing or duo queuing. There are few things worse than a teammate that doesn't communicate during the draft. Let's say you want to play either carry or jungler, and you have first pick on A side's draft. You don't soft lock either of those roles because you are a lazy asshole. One of the other players on your team really wants to play captain and soft locks it. After ban, you know that picking a captain here is probably best, so you wait 15 seconds hoping the teammate who selected captain will give you what he wants. You start soft locking captain heroes. The other guy assumes you want to play captain and switches his role to jungle. You pick whichever captain you think is best. After draft is complete, you attempt to switch with the guy who now has jungle selected. But he doesn't switch with you because he assumed you wanted to play captain, and he doesn't like the captain you selected anyway. Now you and your teammate are upset because neither of you are playing the roles you wanted to play. You're going to be tapping the screen over 100 times per minute during the game. How hard is it to tap the screen twice during draft and soft lock the role you want? Even if you are indifferent and will play any role, soft lock every role until the other teammates pick one. Don't be a lazy asshole. There are already too many lazy assholes playing this game. There's a lot more about drafting, but I think knowing the basic drafting strategies will get you started. If you have more questions about drafting in Vainglory, feel free to ask in the comments. I will give you a reply or cover it the next time I do a video on drafting with whatever the new meta heroes are. As always, thank you for watching, and I really do hope you learned something.